Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the charts when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin, the price action, as well as the rainbow chart, seeing where we are in the current Bitcoin cycle. And let's start off with fear and greed. We are right now even at neutral. A month ago, we were in fear, almost extreme fear, and even a week ago in greed. So a lot of volatility popping around in the markets, and you guys can see this reflected in the downtrend right here from greed into fear. Right now, you could say there's been this minor uptrend ever since August. So if all of a sudden you see greed spiking above this level of 74, getting into extreme greed, I will say that would probably bode well for a true reversal of the trend. When we zoom way out, you guys can see here sometimes we do spike down and then start to consolidate before moving on up. Here was that 2020 COVID flash crash. Otherwise, when fear or greed tend to accumulate or hang out in one area for a bit longer, then typically we have more highs coming, or after here, there was further downside even after it was hanging out here for a while. So something to keep in mind for any of you altcoin holders or Bitcoin mining stock holders is Bitcoin dominance. You want to keep an eye on this and what it's doing, because when Bitcoin dominance goes down in the past, that has been very good for alts, and that has frankly not happened yet. So this could still be very early timing as far as getting in for altcoins. This is the alt season index, and overall that's in an uptrend. Right now, as far as the rainbow chart, you guys can see we're hanging out at the edge of the teal and the green zone. So if we were to go out just to the middle of October, the lower end of the teal zone you can see there is at around 47K, 48K, and the upper end of the green zone would be about 80,000. So that's sort of the range I'd be looking for if we just maintain the same, go sideways down a bit. And you guys can see here in the past around the halving, at least this halving was in 2016, 2017, that when Bitcoin went up before the halving, as it did that time back here, and we made a new peak before the halving this time around. But you can see this mid-cycle top, it went down almost 2 full zones. So the price will try to get locked on there up to 760 and came down somewhere around, if it wants to load up, somewhere around the 500 level. And recently, if we reset this, you can see here we were up in the yellow zone, peaking into there in March, and have somewhat come down to this teal zone, not the lower end. And last time in 2019 to 2020, you can see there it corrected down, not just a couple bands, but 1, 2, 3. You could say with the COVID flash crash 4 bands, but I'll say 3. Let's just cast aside the black swan. But it went down a total of 3 bands. So 2 here, 3 there. So far, you could say we've gone down about 2. So if it did get down any lower, you guys could say by just looking at the average, the lower end of the teal zone, somewhere around that 48K, would be the area to look for. And so you guys can see I was looking at Bitcoin dominance before. But if we zoom out, and you know that number I was just talking about, that teal zone, that 47K, you see this light blue line moving on up. You also see some price action back here. We can throw it on the daily and get a better look at that. So you can see some price action here, 47K. Kind of near the upper end of this. And guys, there's a couple things going on. So right now we have, well, let me make sure we put our fib on log scale so I say this to you accurately. But we have this macro 786 fib that's around 50K. So that's one area to look for. We also have the 100-week moving average, the EMA. Let me show you that here. The EMA 100 is that light blue line. That's around 47K. So where this goes, in my opinion, would be potential bottoming areas, most likely, in my opinion, if Bitcoin was to go down further. Now, when we go to the last cycle, you guys can see after the mid-cycle top that we had in 2019, somewhere around 14K, there's the first Fed rate cuts near the mid-cycle. So somewhat similar conditions. So we had the mid-cycle top about, 6 months before the first Fed rate cut. So a little different in that respect. But it still went sideways down all the way to the 100-week moving average. Yes, we had COVID, got down to the 200, but then that was strongly bought up. So this is the way I'm looking at it, guys. I was talking about volatility before and prices jumping up and down. If we are to get any sort of increased volatility and any spikes down, the way I'm looking at this is those might be good dip buying opportunities, because if we are anywhere in here, you guys can clearly see by the way it worked out last time that those were the last best opportunities to buy at discounted prices when we were back here. You guys might remember COVID, the sky was falling, the economy sucks. And when you look at the charts, again, this is part of market psychology. You want to be greedy when others are fearful. So when the sky is falling, when the volatility is spiking, those tend to be good dips in the market. And let's actually go over to the volatility and take a look at this here. So should we look at the 1 week? Let's do the daily time frame. So this is the VIX. It's a volatility index. And right now we are getting a VIX spike. So just something important to know, this was a VIX spike with the yen carry trade, highest volatility spike since COVID, and before that, the great financial crisis in '08. So third highest volatility spike in something like the last 30 years. We had that not too long ago. When we're getting these big spikes up into the mid to high 20s or higher, those tend to be good times to buy. So you can see the S&P 500, stocks overall red today. And I will say, just this is what I've been observing recently, is the stocks have been kind of front-running crypto. So stocks were doing decently well last week. And if they are starting to turn red, then maybe crypto is going to turn red after. So something to watch for. I'm not saying that absolutely has to happen. But if we were to make an argument for that, you can say, well, Bitcoin, it reached this price today. Let's zoom in a lot further. Crypto reached a price today of around 64.4. That was our daily high today, around 60. Okay, so that's close enough. And where else do we see that 64.4? As we just go sideways here, you see there's quite a bit of a ceiling as we look back and to the left. So 64.4, bit of a ceiling here. You can go even to the candle body. And yes, we had this little pump above it. And here I'm just drawing this parallel trend line to this trend line that Bitcoin's been in love with since the very bottom. You can see all these spikes up on Bitcoin. And something I noticed with the price is like, well, we kind of seem to be in a channel here, at least with these little dips. And the ceiling of that channel tends to be underneath, you guys can see, parallel with that trend line Bitcoin's been in love with. So a little bit of weakness coming up. And if Bitcoin isn't able to get above this trend line and price of, I would say, somewhere around 67K, if it's not able to truly get above 67K, I'm thinking that we may be getting ready to not just revisit the 200-day moving average at 60,000. And as you can see there, Bitcoin had a nice bounce off there. But it is possible if we do come down, then you'd be looking at this higher low here on the trend line. You'd be wanting that to hold. And obviously we can go out a few days. So somewhere in the 57, 58K range. If that doesn't hold, then again, we're looking at this macro 786 fib at around 50K and the 100-week moving average at around 47K. And again, guys, I'm not saying Bitcoin has to get to these prices. The way I'm looking at this as a market psychologist with all of you is that for fear to come back into the markets, if that were to happen, where could we see some support? That's what I'd be looking for. So if that does happen, I would be looking for good opportunities to buy. I'm not saying it will happen, but if it did. Now, let's go over to Bitcoin dominance because we were talking about that before. How has Bitcoin dominance been looking? At least on the weekly, that's looking pretty bullish. But you can see here we have minor lower highs. And before I zoom in on the daily, I hope you guys notice this. And by the way, this is a good way to look at any stock in general. What moving average does Bitcoin dominance seem to love? That red line, the 20. And when it got bullish, it keeps coming down to that red line, the 20. Now it had the 200. Once it got above the 200 uninvert, it did backtest that, but it's been in love with the 20. So even if dominance does come down, see what it does off the 20. If it starts getting durably below the 20, then it may be go time for alt season. But so far, it's loved the 20 on the weekly. As far as the daily, what do you guys see here? It likes, well, it does get down sometimes to the 200 day moving average, but overall likes the 50 and the 100. And recently, just the 50. So it's turned out to be pretty bullish, but we do have a lower high, so I won't be surprised to see what it does with the 50. And if it breaks underneath, see what it does there at the 100 moving average. But overall, the big story for Bitcoin dominance, the true story, is that when in the past, you can see these are by weeks, so it's about 6 weeks, that when dominance tanked, that's when alts exploded. When dominance tanked 4 weeks in 2017 at the end, that's when alts exploded. And a couple ways to look at the altcoin market. Well, one, you can take a look at the top altcoin, and that's Ethereum. And where's Ethereum right now? Well, guys, remember what I was talking about with Bitcoin, the 100-week moving average? Look where Ethereum is. It's at the 100-week moving average. Now, it does have this trend line. You can see these higher lows, okay? And Ethereum recently, this was when we had that big yen carry trade, volatility spike in the markets. You can see Ethereum came almost all the way down that trend line, and the 200-week moving average, I could draw the fib out further, but you guys can clearly see what's going on. Tested the trend line again, but look at this. It had a rejection off the 50 and is coming down again. So let's take a look at the daily. Okay, we are seeing a little bit of an uptick, but it has to do more in order to get a green candle on the weekly. So if it isn't able to get above this 50-day moving average, that orange line, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ethereum get down here. Now, is Ethereum a decent, pretty good level? I think so. I think if you like Ethereum, if you like many of the altcoins, they're not at horrible levels to dollar cost average into. So a couple things I look for when I dollar cost average in. I'll show you guys some indicators I use. So this is a buy sell signal indicator. You get the green dots. I like looking at the weekly. Okay, buy sell, so you can buy in the weekly right there. You can also take a look at the stochastic RSI. No, not the stochastic. Yes, the stochastic, sorry. When we are way down here and we start flipping positive, blue above orange, that tends to be a good dip buying opportunity. Now, another thing to look for the stochastic is not just it flipping positive, but where it's at on the moving averages too. So there's a couple ways to go about that. In a bull trend, you'd want to make sure that you're above the 20 usually overall. But in a bear trend, then you can take a look at these moving averages as more deep value. But you do have to be careful catching falling knives. So again, I don't want to, I say in every video, nothing here's financial advice. I'm just sharing some of the indicators I use. I don't want to hold your hand and tell you exactly what to do, but you guys can use whatever indicators you do use. Here's my advice. And I share this advice even in my field of psychology with people, is that whatever your strengths are, try to hone in on those and use those to your advantage. So you don't have to try to do 500 different things. Find the few things you do well. So the way I do this is I have maybe 5 indicators that I feel very strong with, and I use those. Now, of course, I try to learn about some other ones and see if I can make that into my own, but if not, that's okay. You want to play to your strengths, especially when it comes to your hard-earned money. Another way to look at alts is to take a look at total 3. And the reason we're doing this, guys, and not just talking about Bitcoin, so total 3 excludes Bitcoin and Ethereum, is because I know a lot of you guys buy mining stocks, which are pretty much altcoins. They behave like altcoins. I know many of you guys buy altcoins. From the comments I've seen, not many of you, or most of you, aren't just purely Bitcoin maxis, and that's okay. So it is important we take a look at the alt market, and do know that the alt market has shown more weakness than the Bitcoin market. So as far as total 3, you can see it got down to the 100, it's been at the 50, but we do have this red candle. What if we did the buy sell signal? So no sell signal yet, but we do have these dojis, which is undecided, and we do have these lower highs. So if this continues, I would not be surprised to see the alt market come down to this trend line, or this 0.5 fib and the 50 moving average right there. Okay, let's go back over to Bitcoin. Let's take a look at it from another few perspectives. Okay, we've talked about this green vertical line. This is end of this year. This is what we get when we take the average from any new all-time high, which we had in March. And how long does it take from a new all-time high to the next peak? About 300 days. And that puts us at the end of the year. Back testing that, what that would look like, guys, is this yellow line right here. You can see straight to the left, that was the all-time high 2017. When we broke that all-time high, we had a little bit of time before we got to the true peak here in November. Again, if you just average that out from prior cycles, it's about 300 days. So 300 days would put us at the end of the year. Now, if you take the average, and by the way, this is the break of the former all-time high, yellow line, white line, you take the average from the halvings, this was a halving to the next peak, puts us further out in August of next year. So I'm trying to show you guys different perspectives, ways to look at things. This is just a range I'm looking at. We'll see what happens. Obviously, the Fed rate cuts have a lot to do with it. You can see when the Fed first cut rates, and this is the only time we had this variable last time around. When the Fed first cut rates, Bitcoin went down pretty much until the Fed stopped cutting rates. It paused, and then it started to shoot up once they were holding rates, or once they were done cutting rates. So once the Fed starts cutting rates, then I could see if Bitcoin is to continue its downtrend right here, once they were done cutting rates, I would look at that as pretty bullish behavior. Now, I know there's a lot in the news going on right now with the election, jobs numbers, and things. There's a lot of bullish talk in the news lately. We'll see if that continues to affect the market in a positive way, because were things bullish in stocks end of last week? Yes, they were. With the jobs numbers, I get all that. Does not always mean that's how the stock market and thus the crypto market react. And the way I see the crypto market is as more of a risky tech asset as far as the price action that it has. When the stock market is risk off, so is crypto. It does not quite have that value of gold yet, though there is a relationship there. Once gold is done spiking, that tends to be very bullish for crypto. So that's another thing to pay attention to. Another perspective. Maybe I'm going to title this video different perspectives of Bitcoin. Okay. And I'm talking about different perspectives because this is how a market psychologist looks at things. You try to see things from different angles, kind of like in the movie Dead Poets Society. Sometimes you have to stand up on a desk to get a new view on things. And we get so used to viewing the crypto markets in specific ways, depending on whether you're an Elliott wave theorist or whether you're a Bitcoin maxi, and maybe you're a part of the XRP army, whatever it is. My challenge to you guys as the market psychologist is to look at things outside of your perspective, to try to set your bias to the side and just take a look at what the data is showing you plainly. Now, as far as this downtrend is concerned, you can see here I have on the Heikin-Ashi candles. I use Heikin-Ashi candles because they cut out the noise a little bit better. You guys can see right there, my preference. But you can see right here how we have these trends. 5 weeks red, 4 weeks green. 5 weeks red, 2 green. 3 red, 2 green, 2 red, 4 green so far, maybe 3, we'll see. But just know we've been chopping sideways and slightly going down. That's been the story. Are we breaking above that? Are there signs to show that we are durably breaking above that? Well, again, as I've said earlier, what has the stock market been showing us? Well, today there's been high volatility. Today in the stock market, bit of well, actually, let's go to the last 5 days. You can see here going up for a bit and today going down. So again, there can be a lagging effect from the stock to the crypto market. So just something to be careful of. Is just that perspective. Okay? So we'll see what happens with the market, the stocks. You can see here is trying to get back up to the former all-time high and break above it. Right there, that's a red sell signal on the daily. So if that continues, then we'll see. Okay? We might have some minor volatility. Another thing, I talked about this in the live stream last week. So subscribe if you want to be part of any of those. I try to do those on Friday, time to time. And I really enjoy when you guys are able to make it, share your comments. I myself, I try to not just preach to you guys, but also do the things that I share and educate people on in the field of psychology as I do in my normal day job. But I try to have a different perspective as well. So I do enjoy your comments and thinking about things from the lens that you guys are seeing it. So be open-minded. Now at the bottom, sorry, my screen sort of cut it off. These are months from January to December over here. That's what we have going left to right. And this is just the general market trend going from the start of the year. Again, this line's January, December is over here, okay? So end of December, this line right here. And what do you guys notice? Well, again, you can't see, but down here is, here we go. You guys can kind of see it. Again, sorry it got cut off there. But right here is October to November. Again, this is election years, just the average since 1950. And going into the election, we tend to have quite a dip. So September, you guys have been hearing about, oh, September is horrible, September is bad. Well, let's go over to Bitcoin. Let's take a look at Bitcoin within the last month. Okay? Well, overall, let's take a look at September 1st. Where was September 1st? September 1st was right somewhere around here. Okay? Well, you guys can clearly see that, okay, it's right about this level. Let's measure this out. It's right around this level. I mean, we went up at one point 14% in September, but let's go to September 31st. Where is the 31st? I'm looking at the bottom, or the 30th, sorry. The 30th. September, from what I'm seeing here on Bitcoin from the start, went up about 10%, if I'm reading that correctly. So again, you can see at the bottom, September 1st. Again, the numbers might be slightly off. You can see here, 59K. All right. I guess I drew down a little bit too much. Sorry, let's correct that again. We were at 59K, and then October 30th, or September 30th, we were around, 7.5% up. So overall, bullish during September. Now, what do you guys see here? Overall, September tends to do okay in election years. But at the end of September, here in October, you guys can notice that October, this is just on average. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. But on average, during election years, we've had a downward turn since 1950. Now, is this going to happen again? I don't know. But I'd say with the VIX spike, something to watch out for. There's been a lot of good news in the market, a lot of greed. This is what we got on pie vesting, CNN, greed. So I'm cautious right now. When we are in extreme greed or near those levels as we are with stocks, and we're near the very all-time highs, I'm a little bit cautious as far as right now, where we are at. So October, let's go back to this. You guys can see right here that if we were to go down, you can see rebase to 100 after start of the year. So a couple percentage points. Okay, if we were to go down to lower, I would say, without being too bearish, because I don't want to just be I don't want to be known as a bull or a bear, but if we were to get pretty negative, I'd say this area, this range down here, we have the lower end of the channel, and we also have this ascending trend line now that we just made, and we got these parallel channels going on. I would say something in this range of 53 to 57 is what I would be looking, just conservatively speaking, in a bearish scenario. Very bearish, again, I would go over to that 100-week moving average, which is not too far lower at 47. So anywhere in here, I mean, even right now, guys, there's mining stocks, there's altcoins, I think overall still have very good potential to do many multiples. If you guys are watching videos like this right now and you are getting into altcoins, the right ones, again, I don't know which ones are going to do great, but if you're getting into the right altcoins right now, the right mining stocks, then you are going to be way better off than the people, the retail, or as Wall Street calls them, the dumb money or exit liquidity. You know where they're getting in? They're getting in up here at the very top. Bitcoin dominance, they're getting in down here when everything's going 10, 20x. It's too late. You guys are getting in, if you are right now, all things considered with prior cycles, you guys are getting in somewhere in here or somewhere in here. That's where we are at. We have not gone mega stupid bullish. I'll show you one more indicator to show that. And some of you really like this one. I will say be careful with this one. It's called Pi Cycle Bitcoin High Low. There's Bitcoin, as we see on the rainbow chart, does have diminishing returns. You can see above max bubble. By the way, someone pointed out that the rainbow levels look a little different than last time. If you caught that, good on you. That is true. Sometimes they show the prior rainbow chart. Here we go. So you guys can see that they corrected it a little bit. But what you will notice, I mean, even in this one, I was going to say it's 2013 is well above 2017 in the red zone. 2021, this is in the light orange zone. So it went down two full zones pretty much to the top of that one. If that were to happen again, you see here the still cheap zone, it'd be somewhere around here, the upper end. And if we're looking out there, that's around, look at that number, 155K in the still cheap zone. Again, I'm just going by patterns. Going by a couple levels down to here, max bubble, couple levels down to orange, okay, here. And you could say it's at the lower end of orange, so right here. So a couple levels down, still cheap. Guys, I'm not kidding as far as, I didn't even plan to talk about this. So you can see there, the still cheap area, there we go, around 150K. I've talked about this. Here it lines up, top of this area, max bubble, second one. This time I'm looking for orange in the updated one. And again, I'm taking a look at orange in April, 150. Okay. Sorry, I got to hide this real quick. 150. Why is 150 important? Any of you guys been subscribed? Man, I go on freaking tangents. I apologize. When we take our fib off log to look at price targets, the 2618, 150. That price keeps coming up. Keeps coming up as a target. Now, the 1618 at 100, I think is key. That's where the tops line up, and all of it lines up here in December. And maybe that's the time when we get stupid bullish somewhere into April or May, and then that's the top. If we get an early top, that's what I'd be looking for. Again, could it be later in the year? Sure. I don't know when it's going to be. Okay. Let's take this off log. Let's take a look at our Pi cycle indicator again. This is the last thing I was going to show you guys. The Pi cycle indicator. Again, there's no reason this doesn't have to trigger. This is why we started talking about it, because I was trying to show you diminished returns. When the Pi cycle high triggers, that's typically the high. Now, here we had a higher high, 2013. Again, much more volatile in previous cycles. Price cycle low, called the bottom. Price cycle high, called the top. Price cycle low, called the bottom. Price cycle high, did not call the top. This was the first top. And by the way, this was alt season here. The true top was here. Price cycle low, this was not the bottom. We had a black swan event with the FTX collapse at the bottom. So do know these things, these indicators can be slightly off. But what happened in both mid cycles? Tops. Mid cycle hit this upper pi cycle moving average and then got rejected. Here, and I've seen stocks do this that get stupid bullish. They hit this and they go sideways. Nvidia is one of them. Nvidia is one that seems to honor this well. Hit, sideways, hit, down, hit, sideways, hit. Man, it kept going up with it. So I sold my Nvidia up here, and this was, by the way, at the when they did the stock split, and I was able to get in down here, pat myself on the back. But that was one indicator. I'm like, this is getting stupid bullish. I'm going to take profits. Glad I did. So we are far away from this line. And by the way, where is it right now? 112,000. Okay. Again, this 100K area, maybe this will need the level out, come down a little bit, and then we're going to smack into it. And if Bitcoin starts to get above this pi cycle average and go up, that's probably the end game. So again, I'm going to call this video different perspectives for crypto. We talked about a lot of things. I hope you guys enjoyed. I want to go over current price action, but also give you something different each time to, again, challenge the way we think, because we don't want to just get stuck with a certain perspective on what the Bitcoin crypto market's going to do and then be left twiddling our thumbs when it does something we don't expect. Too many YouTubers, I'm going to close with this. Too many people, crypto YouTubers and people on X, are more concerned with being right rather than with having a strategy on how to make money. It is more important to make money than be right. That's why I frankly don't care where this goes or when. I don't care if the top is in a year, 2 years, if it follows a pattern or not. You guys hear me talk that when we are at these values, I'm looking to pick up more. I'm looking to pick up more because that is deep value as far as prior cycles have been concerned. So I talk about the stochastic RSI, the buy-sell signals, the moving averages, the lower fibs. These are good areas to be patient for, but then you got to jump on those opportunities. Because I tell you what, a lot of people don't jump on those opportunities. They miss them because there's fear in the market. They get worried. Guys, those are the times to buy when we get these big sell-offs and you hit those levels. So make a plan, make your own plan, take anything that I share with you, and feel free to take whatever, leave whatever, but please start making a plan, because if you're watching this video now, you are early compared to retail, aka dumb money, aka exit liquidity, as far as Wall Street's concerned. You are still early. So do know that whether we're topping in April, a year from now, you gotta, if you're looking at opportunities for altcoins, we're still at not a bad level. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.